Hello and welcome back to the Mindsets podcast. Today I'm joined by Max, but first and foremost, I'm still your host somehow. You guys haven't got rid of me yet. My name's Angus Cook, and we've got Max on here today to talk a little bit about a different form of gym training, something that I haven't actually experienced, so I'm quite excited to find out more about it. But I'll hand over to you to do an introduction of yourself first and foremost, so off you go.
Perfect. My name is Max Mansell-Rowe and I'm 23 years old. I do powerlifting competitively and I'm from Surrey.
Amazing. Now, you're not just from Surrey. We actually have a bit of a crossover in our upbringing. However, when did you first discover sport? Not gym, but sport.
When I was 4, my dad got me a motorbike for my birthday.
Wow, that's really rogue as a first sport.
So since I was that old, I have ridden motorbikes until I was maybe 14, 15. And then I got a moped when I was 17 as well, just to get to school and stuff.
And was that when you were riding those bikes when you were younger, was it dirt biking?
Yeah, motocross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never even given that a go. I've seen it's mental. Half the time I was playing the games on mini clip where your bike shoots off the jumps and stuff like that. But getting into motocross at a young age, I think the typical thing when you're young is that, there's not really much fear because you're not really scared about breaking anything.
I think that's fun.
Is that something that you reveled in? It was getting on that bike?
I always was somewhat scared, because I did it by myself. And sometimes if you go to a bigger track, there's older guys there or other people that are way better than you. But then it's you're just doing your thing. So you're just trying to be careful enough, but also you don't really care that much because you are younger.
Yeah, fair enough. So 14, that would have meant that you were at secondary school.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly how old I was when I finished. But yeah, I think I had 4 bikes in total. And I remember the last bike I had, it was I was small enough on it that my dad, when I came into the pits, I'd either have to lean it up against the wall or my dad would have to come in and hold it for me because I literally couldn't touch the floor either side of it. So I was still pretty short, even though I'm quite short now as well.
Well, we'll discuss some things on this later on when we get into the kind of lifting that you do. So by that time that you've stopped, as we said, if you're around 14, you're at secondary school, right?
Yeah.
So that's where our paths first cross, I guess.
I thought you went to the Raleigh.
Well, actually, this is true. So we both went to the same primary school and we both went to the same secondary school. But I feel realistically, when you're in primary school, you don't really know anyone else other than who's in your year.
That's very
true.
I'm
very aware that yes, we both went to the same primary school, but I only really became aware of you, and then you've obviously got your older sister as well.
Yeah.
Through the Howard. Now, obviously, as you get older and you go through those school systems, and having been through both, I'm aware of how they introduce you to different sports. Generally through PE. Yeah. There's also outdoor clubs, that sort of thing. What sport did you transition to away from motocross when you were?
I was always playing football. I played rugby as well at the same time. And then I just did, so I did them both at the same time. And then I also got into badminton as well. I quite like badminton. I'm crap at every other racket sport and somehow I'm all right at badminton. And then that's about it sport-wise, yeah.
Okay, so again, a bit of an exploration. I guess it's the pretty typical sports that most people play when they're younger in sort of England, I guess. But moving to what you do now, which is powerlifting.
Yeah.
Right? So especially if some of your followers are listening to this now, they're very, very aware of some of your lifts and that kind of thing. For those that are more on the podcast side that are listening, Max is a pretty good powerlifter. So we'll get into kind of your journey there, I guess, now. So powerlifting probably wasn't where you started.
No, definitely
not. So what was the sort of journey with the gym and discovering the gym?
I think when I was younger, I wanted a 6-pack. I think that's how a lot of people start out. So I was going, there was a hotel near where I lived that had a little gym. So we would just go in, do a little bit of training, then probably spend most of the time in the pool, just mucking around really. And then someone we knew had actually joined an actual gym. I think at the time you had to be, 16 or 18 to join that gym. So whichever one that was, me and a few mates joined that gym. And we would basically just go after school and just train with each other basically. So just based like bodybuilding style training.
I think one thing that I found really interesting, so our school, at the secondary school anyway, at the Howard of Effingham, the gym that was there was like kind of like a shoebox. Right?
Yeah.
It had stuff in there. And with that being said, and me saying it's a shoebox, that's now me comparing against other gyms. When I was that age, I could lift a lot of those weights. You
could fit a whole class in there.
You could fit a whole class in there. You would do. But I always found it really interesting because at lunch breaks, or even if you did go off school, it was still a bit of a weird thing to like, oh, you go to the gym.
Oh, 100%. And I was in the boat of like, when at lunchtime, other people going to the gym, I'd be like, why are you going in the gym at lunchtime? I'm chilling out with my mates. Like, why would I want to go train on my lunchtime? Looking back now, I'll be like, well, yes, I'd 100% want to do that instead, probably. So it's weird, like that shift in mentality of seeing other people doing something and thinking, oh, that's a bit odd. So like, that was what I'll be doing now, basically.
And do you remember, obviously, going to the gym after school? If you were going pretty consistently, you're going to reach this thing which everyone experiences in their first sort of 6 to 9 months of the gym, which is the beginner gains.
Yeah.
Do you have a clear memory of beginner gains and like that rapid ramp up in muscle growth?
I don't actually think so, but purely because I was so unaware of everything outside of the gym, essentially like diet. My sleep was probably fine because when you're younger, I guess you sleep a lot. But my diet was so bad because I knew nothing about like nutrition, to the point where like it just wouldn't help me enough, even though I was training somewhat correctly. My diet was just so bad it couldn't even. I just never saw that like crazy progress, and like didn't put on a lot of size. I probably gained strength like quicker than most of my mates, and maybe that's got like some playing like genetics and stuff like that. But I was no point in time I was like, oh my god.
So was the realization of your strength why you started looking towards powerlifting, or was it kind of just coincidental?
It wasn't really anything to do with that. It's just like me and my mates, they were always like probably stronger than me. And then when I started training with them, I sort of caught them up and then maybe overtook them a little bit. And then just people go, oh, like you're pretty strong sort of thing. And that's like, it was never anything like, oh my God, like he's so strong. Like that was never the case.
Okay. And then as we mentioned slightly earlier on, your older sister is also trains.
Yep.
Now, did she inspire you to start training to a degree?
So basically, so I went into the gym one day where we both were members at the same gym, but I never really would like see her train, and she was working nights and stuff like that. And that particular time we were both training at the same time. She was doing squats, I think, or something like that. And I just never trained legs back then. And she was squatting like more than I had ever like squat before, because I just never did them. And I just was like, I actually was confused. I think I went and spoke to her. I was like, yeah, but how's this possible? Like, why are you squatting, and why are you squatting so much? And then basically from there, I was like, oh, my sister like just can't be stronger than me. And so I think that she had like someone had given her a program at the time, and she sort of just was like, oh yeah, like try this out sort of thing. So it was like cookie cutter program of just like me trying whatever she had done basically.
Okay. And from that point, following that program, was it that program that took you to your first competition, or did that kind of light the spark, which then got you more into it?
Yeah, I think looking back, I would have done things very differently in terms of training. I spent so long thinking I knew everything in the world, knew exactly what I was doing with my training, and I thought I did that program for a little bit of time, and then I thought, oh, and I know best, I'm going to just train how I want to train. As long as I'm doing squats, as long as I'm bench pressing, and as long as I'm doing deadlifts, I literally doing everything perfectly. So my training was pretty diabolical, and like I did that up until my first competition basically. Yeah.
I think this is one of the biggest pitfalls of every single lifter, and to be fair, a lot of the good lifters that I know, is that we were all going through the same thing at the same time. For some reason, we always thought we knew better.
Oh, 100%.
And to be fair, there was some confusion. I think this is one of the things with the fitness industry is sometimes the way that things were sold initially, when like YouTube was getting big and Instagram fitness influencers were getting big for the first time, it was a lot easier for them to push a random workout and make that sell, and then change it up completely
100%.
And sell that as well, rather than selling like good advice that's science backed. And I think in recent years, the science backed side of things has become far more interesting to a lot of people.
Definitely.
I am a little bit jealous that people that were my age when I started in the gym have probably got way better form.
Fair enough.
Now. But at the same time, the process of learning all of that has made me a far more knowledgeable character because I've made so many mistakes myself.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, what I want to know is, in terms of your progression, then, as you say, you look back now and you'd have done certain things differently. Would one of the things that you would have done differently is compete earlier on than you did?
No, because I didn't necessarily powerlift for too much time before my first competition. In fact, like, I think I remember I got my squat shoes, same ones I have to this day. It was like July 2019, and I did my first powerlifting competition started December in 2019. So like that period of time isn't too long necessarily. Like, I've been training before that, but not like what I called powerlifting back then. So I'm happy. Like, I think that was sooner than I would have ever actually done a competition, and that's also thanks to my sister, because like she actually, like, shout out to Alex, like, would do a lot for me myself in terms of like training and organizing me in terms of my training as well.
Okay, so with your first competition then, I've had a look online.
Yeah.
As far as I'm aware, a lot of these competitions are like regional.
Yeah.
Okay, so this first one was the SM regional.
Yeah.
Was that South Midlands?
That's South Midlands, yeah.
Considering the fact that you're from like Surrey,
Yeah.
why did you go South Midlands to compete for the first time?
I genuinely think, once again, my sister had a coach at the time, I think, and she had recommended that federation or that region as opposed to another one, just in terms of like how the event was run, and like she maybe knew some of the organizers or something like that. But that was just the reason why.
And what was that first competition like?
It was so hectic. It was like warm-ups were like downstairs and the actual compete was upstairs. And I remember it was like, obviously it's December, so it was cold. And I remember we'd be like running from outside to upstairs. You had to go outside to get to the upstairs bit. And like I would be running up the stairs on one of my lifts and I hear my name getting called that I'm meant to be lifting. I'm still outside, haven't got any of my equipment on. It was just a bit of it was crazy, to be fair. And I think like from being in that situation, I now know if I'm handling someone else and helping them out at a comp, like how I can make things like just so much more smoother for them, because I've been in the situation where I was like, I didn't necessarily have someone know exactly what they were doing to help me.
Did nerves on the day have a huge impact on your lift, especially because it's like first competition?
Yeah, I think like I just tried to make things like had the same songs maybe I listen to normally, like to get myself in the zone. I tried to just keep things as like normal or as familiar as I could, basically. But there's always a slight difference in equipment from where I was training at the time. There's different plates, bars, racks. So basically, as soon as I got to the warm-up room, everything felt unfamiliar because there was different kit there, and it wasn't even like competition kit. So then by the time I got to the platform, it's all different again. So everything feels slightly different. So even if you're feeling your best self, there's still like variables that are there that are going to like throw you off, basically.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But move forward to where we are today. How many competitions have you done at this point?
Oh, I don't know.
It's quite a few.
Yeah, like up 5, 6, 7 perhaps.
Okay, and I think the important thing with those is obviously, unlike other competitions, you're not just going to do like week back to back to back, because you've got to go away, you've got to develop the strength, work on that. But your most recent one was the World Juniors, or Sub Juniors, where you placed 4th. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yeah.
How did that competition feel, considering that's your most recent one?
To be honest, I didn't feel like 100%, and I don't know what it was at the time. I think I had like a slight with my hip or like my quad, had something that was like a bit off with that leading into the competition. So like my squat was not feeling as good, basically. And then I was doing a water cut, which I sort of just do all by myself, in terms of like, I just look at what I need to do, like water and sodium wise, and then just manipulate those based off my own back, which like, it always puts doubt in my mind, because I'm like, oh, it's all on me. If someone else is telling me to do it, I sort of would just do whatever they said and I feel confident. But you always sort of doubt yourself a little bit, like, oh, have I done things right? And then I think I overdid it and I lost a little bit too much weight. So then I'm thinking, oh, have I overdone it that way and I've lost too much weight now? But I think because I've competed a fair few times, then actually doing it, I felt pretty good in terms of like the warm-up room was good. Like the platform's all familiar, so that all felt normal. But myself, I didn't like feel 100%.
That makes sense. Now, with the whole water cut thing, this is something that I've discussed with someone before that's a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
But I guess in terms of understanding a bit more about the sport of powerlifting, you still have to make a weight class.
Yeah.
So is that really why you're doing it?
Yeah, basically. So like you can sit a bit heavier and be training heavier, which obviously is probably you're gonna hold more muscle mass. It's gonna increase your strength. And then when it comes to a competition time, you're getting rid of like excess water in your body that you can then rehydrate with before you compete, so that you've made your weight class and you've not had to get rid of like fat or muscle mass, basically.
Okay, cool. Now on the topic of kind of bolstering knowledge, I like to think that I have a good general understanding of sports.
Yeah.
But not in the nitty-gritties.
Yeah.
And so if anyone else is here from seeing Max pull absurd weight off the floor and making it look like fake plates, what I want to get a bit of a better understanding of is the whole competing process. So obviously in powerlifting, you compete across 3 different lifts.
Yep.
Which is your bench, your squat, your deadlift.
Yeah.
Am I right in thinking you have 3 attempts?
Yeah. 3 attempts.
A designated weight? And how long can you just keep going up for?
So basically, when you at the start of the day, you'll have a weigh-in time, and that's roughly like 2 hours before you lift off. So at that point in time, you'll get on a scales, weigh yourself. You'll hand your first attempts in, so you'll let them know what you want to do for each of those first lifts. You've got until, I think it's 10 minutes or 3 minutes before your lift starts that you can change your attempts. So other than that, they're all set because you gave them in at your weigh-in. And then you'll warm up until, like everyone's warm-ups are different, obviously. But let's say you're going to open my squat on like 235. I might warm up to 220 in the warm-up room, time it so I've got roughly 8 or so minutes before I'm going to be lifting. And then you go out and do your lift. You've then got a minute from after your lift to write on a slip of paper your second attempt, and then you'll hand that in to the table, and they'll fill out that's what you're going to do for your second attempt, basically. And then same again for your third, and then that's you done.
Okay. And what is the thought process that goes into setting those weights?
I think it's probably based on someone videoing it so I can see what it looks like, and then how I felt it went, basically.
Do you go into a day being like, today I want to do this weight on this movement, and then you kind of just adjust it on the fly based on how it feels?
So basically I'll have like a great day, good day, bad day.
Yeah.
And then like a number in for each of those, what I'm going to do for first, second and third. And then I'll probably just tweak it accordingly, basically.
Because in terms of the competition, is there only a winner for the total weight moved across all 3 lifts?
Yeah. Oh no, but then they do podiums for squat, bench, deadlift individually as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So like also like, let's say someone's really good at like the squat, they might want to push for a world record or a national record with that. Obviously they're trying to win overall, but they might know that their other lifts are going to like let them down, but there's still something you can get for each of the lifts. Yeah.
Okay. And in terms of like warming up, obviously when you're choosing those first and second weights, I guess you're not just going to choose a weight that is like, you don't want a personal best on your first one, because you do want to do a bit of a build up, get
Oh yeah, 100%. Like the first one, the most nervous I'll be is for my first squat, because as soon as you've got that on the board, you're settled, you've done your first thing, you're good to crack on, and that's almost like your start point. Like I'll always make my first squat something I could do for maybe something like a silly amount of reps. Like I know me going out there and doing one is so comfortable, but it's still, I need it to be comfortable, because that's the thing I'm most nervous for, basically.
Okay. Now, one of the big things in terms of getting these totals all together is this 1,000-pound club.
Yeah.
Do you remember the day that you crossed the 1,000-pound club?
Not at all.
Really? See, that's
Not
really
at
interesting.
all.
Because I remember, like, for people that didn't even powerlift, it was quite a big thing at some of the gyms that I've been to, like university gyms. People
Is it
like,
1,000 pounds between your 3 lifts?
Yeah.
What's that in kilos? 500 and something?
Yeah, something like that. Which I appreciate compared to what you're lifting now is like,
Yeah.
you could probably do that in near enough 2 lifts.
Yeah, I guess maybe. Yeah.
Which is so, but I remember like being in the gym and like being like, oh, 1,000-pound club. Like,
Yeah.
it was crazy.
No, I've never like, that's never been a thing for me.
Oh, really?
I've not even
that's
thought
interesting.
about that. Yeah.
I had that down as like an interesting point, as if that's like a day that you'd remember being like, wow, I'm strong.
I can definitely remember like landmarks in terms of like this many plates on like a squat, this many plates on a bench, this many plates on a deadlift. That's like, I would chase that more than like a particular, like that total sort of thing.
Okay, and with those different lifts, have you found that one or maybe two came more naturally than the others?
Yeah, it's like deadlifts 100%, and then squat. Since I have like my technique, I've tried different things, I've found what works for me, and I just do that consistently. Squat for me is like gone super well, and like for me, bench press is just like, it's just difficult. It's harder. Like. And that means I don't enjoy it as much. And in that way, it's just like a mental thing going into a session. I do enjoy bench, but obviously I'm going to enjoy things more that are improving at a better rate.
Okay. And with that, in terms of kind of figuring out these little tweaks that can improve things, have you got a coach yourself? Now, this is something that I find interesting, is not only did you, like me, when we were younger, go to the gym and just figure out that we were the best.
Yeah.
You also coach.
Yeah.
But you, considering that you're a coach and that people want to be coached by you, you don't coach yourself.
No.
Which actually, from my side of things, seems really logical.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there'll be people listening being like, why would you ask someone else to coach you if you're a coach? Like, surely you know.
I think like just takes anything out of me, like personal things that I think I need to do. Or like I don't like that exercise, I'm not going to do it. And like I don't want to think about my training. I just want someone to think about it for me. And like I'll collaboratively put in ideas and like suggest things. But at the end of the day, I just want to go enjoy my training. And if I overthink things, then I'm just not going to enjoy it as much, basically.
I guess it kind of takes the responsibility away for you to worry about each session.
Yeah, big time.
And I think the other thing as well that I have found in terms of being coached is, if you have a good coach that you're on a level with, and this ultimately can be the difference. If you feel like you don't enjoy being coached, then it might be the coach that's the problem that you've had sometimes. Because when you're on the wavelength with a coach and they understand really where your limits are, but also kind of how to program you in a way that you're going to enjoy it, that's the big thing. Because there's got to be the motivation, but the motivation is useless if it's not supported by development. And I think that's one thing that is hugely overlooked sometimes. And sometimes coaches find a motivation that works for them and assume that it's going to work for their client. And sometimes that's not the case if the development doesn't back it up. Or someone's developing because you've set a good program that you understand and it is clearly working, but it's not fun. Yeah. And that person's also not going to stay for that.
100%. Yeah.
In terms of the way that you coach, do you coach purely powerlifting or do you coach across all things in the gym?
Like, it's basically predominantly powerlifting, but then when I'm working in the gym, that's just like anyone, like could be like middle-aged man, someone that's a bit younger, someone that's even like someone that's older. But then for like people that I coach powerlifting wise, massively, like you said, yes, I'll have what I want them to do and what I think will work best, but they might turn around to me and be like, oh my God, like I'm not getting on with this. I cannot. And I'm not going to be like, no, you have to do this because it's what to do. I'll say, look, the reason I've given this to you is like, these are the reasons. This is what I'm doing, my logic behind the thinking. If you're not getting on with it, like we'll mix it up, let's change it. Because if I'm going into the gym and not enjoying it, I don't want to go to the gym. That's the same for someone else. If they're thinking, oh, I got to go, oh, I got to do this. Yes, it might be the right thing to do, but if they're not going to do it and they're going to be like, oh, I'm going to do this instead. Well, I don't know what they're then going and doing. So I can't like monitor it and they're just not having fun. So they're not going to get on with me as a person. It's almost like that relationship is going to come from success, but also come from like actual having a connection with a person, as opposed to just being a robot that's going to like shoot out some numbers and things for people to do, basically.
One of the things that I'm really interested in is when you take on a new client, what are the like main mistakes that people make going into powerlifting?
Like especially for newer people, it's just technique stuff. Or like holding yourself to like a competition standard. So whether like probably like squat depth is going to be a common one. Whether that's like they aren't aware of what squat depth actually is, or it's like something with their technique that actually needs tweaking, or if it's like the bench press with the pause, they're not pausing for long enough, or their head's coming up, their feet aren't flat. And then for the deadlift, it might just be like not locking out fully with their knees or their shoulders. And it's probably just technique stuff, to be honest. One more thing as well. Technique stuff and intensity. So a lot of people, I think a common misconception with powerlifting is you just train squat, bench, deadlift 100% every day.
Don't you guys bring like a little chair set up?
Yeah,
like put Netflix on it between sets?
We are chilling. Like, I think it's about doing the least amount possible for the maximum amount of gains. And so like if you're there like absolutely killing yourself, you're going to get so fatigued, there's going to be no way you can recover, and like that's just not the way to train. And I think a lot of people think like, if I just do these 3 lifts and go like balls to the wall on these amount of reps and then try up it, yeah, that's going to work for a certain period of time, but after that, like, you're going to burn out, and you're going to be so demotivated because you're like, I can't go up anymore, and that's just what you think is the correct thing to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. With the whole pause thing,
yeah,
it's a long fucking time.
Honestly, and it's longer when you're doing it.
I was going to say,
it feels like it's longer.
I imagine you're pretty well versed in this. I don't know if you have done this for other people.
Yeah.
Can you give me a count for the people that are listening right now, like a bench count?
So it'd be like, say bar comes down, press, like that. It's called like a 1 count pause, basically.
But with a severe amount of weight on your body,
it's harder.
That's a long time. And one of the questions I've got with that, because one of the things I've done in my training throughout to basically get rid of sticking points is work pauses in different areas of rep, right? But when you go down and you pause on your chest, do you let the chest take the weight of the bar, or are you almost doing an ISO hold?
It generally depends. Like for a bigger guy, they're going to probably sink the weight in more. But like for someone that's a bit lighter, even like up until maybe like 93 kilo class, they're probably just going to hold the weight in their hands rather than sinking it onto your chest, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. And a way of like, the thing difficult with letting it sink into your chest is the bar has to be motionless for you to have that count pause like start. So if it touches your chest and it's sinking in, the bar's still moving, they can't give you the press because it hasn't been motionless yet. So that's another way of like, it's a bit more technical. If you're going to sink it, you have to be like quite trained in how to sink it, basically.
And with the whole where the bar is and it not moving, have the rules changed recently? Because I feel like there was a lot of videos of people with like, curly cur, like curly cur and kicking cur. I'm talking about the letter C and the letter K.
Okay, yeah.
Curly cur backs.
Yeah, so
proper
basically
huge arches.
Yeah, so the idea was they introduced a rule on like elbow depth. So from like, let's say someone's bench pressing and we're looking at their head on from like this way, their like bottom of their elbow has to go below the midline in their shoulder from here, if there was like a line going out, basically. And if it doesn't, you'll get like a red light for it, basically, for like a no lift.
Right. Okay. And that's where 3 red lights, you're done there.
No, 2. So if you get 2 good, it's fine. If you get 2 bad, it's no lift.
Okay, so there's 3 judges.
Yep.
And you get 2 red lights, it's a no lift.
Yes.
But then I should have clarified this before, but if you get 2 red lights on and it's a no lift, how many times can that happen before like you're done competing, or do you still have 3 attempts at 3 weights?
Yeah, so let's say first attempt gets 2 reds. I can put my numbers in for my next one. Let's say that's get 2 reds. I can put my numbers in for my next one. If I get that lift, I carry on. If you like bomb out, so to speak, that's when you get like 3 no lifts on 1 lift, basically, and then you're out. You can carry on, but like your total won't be, you didn't get a total, basically.
So if like I walked in, I put this lift in as my first one.
Yeah.
With, let's say it was like a bench of 80 kilos.
Yeah.
I'm going in and I'm like, right, I want to hit that. I get 2 red lights and 1 white light. I'm like, cool, I can carry on.
Yeah.
With my next weight, even though that one didn't count.
Yeah.
So that was a no lift.
Yeah.
So I can say like, right, now this I'm going to do 100 kilos.
Yeah.
I get 2 red lights.
Yeah.
And a white light.
Yeah.
And I go, these guys, man, they don't know what they're looking at. 130 kilos.
Yeah.
And I go in and I get 3 whites.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm through. Or
that's
3
fine.
greens and I'm through.
Yeah.
And then I can keep carrying on.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, that's it.
And your 130 is all good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I keep going until I get 3 no lift judge like reviews.
Yeah, basically you could get, so there's like however many lifts you get out of 9 is you still get a total. So let's say you get 1 squat, 1 bench, 1 deadlift. You miss 6 lifts overall. You get 3 lifts, but you still get yourself a total.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's clear. Cool. Anyone else that was confused, I'm hoping.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, that is not you. That is me not asking the right question. But...
And then I was going to say with the arching as well, like people can still arch.
Yeah.
It just comes into a like factor of like arm length, how big your arch is and stuff like that. But like people can still arch even though they've introduced the rule, but it's just like another thing people have to like a referee might have to look out for, along with like checking their head doesn't come up, checking for the pause, checking their bum, checking their heels doesn't come up. Now they're checking their elbows. It's like 3 people, and they can't look at 5 different places at once. It's just like if someone's really good at the bench press and they've got a massive arch, they're probably going to be like lacking somewhere else. So like in my opinion is like do it if you want. All you're trying to do is lift the most amount of weight possible. If your body can get into that position, mine can't, fair play, go do it. It's like a technique you've trained. They didn't just walk in the gym one day, have a big arch and then just bench like 200 kilos. I think so. It's like trained.
The whole arch thing was obviously a majorly controversial thing in the last few years, which is why they've brought in the new regulations.
Yeah.
One of the other things that is controversial, and I've got a question about, is not about bench press. It's about deadlifting. Sumo is controversial.
Yeah, fair enough.
However, people like Matt Does Fitness have done videos on it. It's still not easy, and I've tried it myself.
Like,
I actually don't think it's easy, but you sumo.
Yeah.
Why?
I think I used to do conventional all the time, and then I'd seen people doing sumo. I think my sister just said something like one day, "Oh, why don't you try it?" I tried it, absolutely hated it. I was like, I'm never doing that again. It's impossible. Then I thought, oh, you know what? Like, I'll give it a go. And it basically just looked like legs far apart, conventional deadlift. It was awful. But eventually then, after my sessions that I would pull conventional because I wasn't training right, just doing everything so intense, my back after the session would just be almost like so fatigued. It would be like a little bit sore. And like when I would do sumo deadlifts, it wasn't as bad. So I think that's the main reason I kept doing them, was because I was like, they're easier when I'm doing them after that while. Also, my back doesn't feel so pumped from working as much. And like after the session, I didn't have pain as well. So it just seemed like no-brainer to me. I was like, I'll just switch over. Like it wasn't like, oh no, I'm doing a sumo deadlift. It was just like, I'm doing this type of deadlift, doesn't work as well. This does. I'm just going to do this one, basically.
Fair enough. So basically, figure out which one actually works. I never really thought of the long term, because I've obviously tried it once or twice. And again, I know my form was terrible. I was like, look, there's no way this is going to work. Like I've got a very long set of legs, which means that typically with conventional, and I don't deadlift anymore purely because when it comes to strength, there's strength in my legs, but it basically means that I drive and straighten my legs before my hip hinge is extended,
backs.
and it's all lower back. It's all painful. So like I'll do RDLs and that sort of thing, where I'm effectively still training the back, but within a healthy range of weight.
And how tall are you?
I'm 6'5", and the thing,
tall.
so the problem that I have and the fear that I have is if I went full sumo, my toes get really close to where the plates are.
People say to me sometimes, but like, I thought your toe was about to like.
Yeah, and what I've noticed is with very experienced powerlifters is when they pull the weight, and then when you guys have locked out, you usually like look around and tell everyone like you're the fucking guy, and then you dump the weight, but as you dump it, you bring your feet in.
Yeah, so I'll do that if I'm doing 1 rep. If I'm doing multiple reps, for some reason, I don't know, like, so I'll either just like shimmy my feet in, then put them out when I'm ready. Or like sometimes I think I just even forget to do that, and then like I'll just leave them out, and I've never had it land on my toe, to be fair, so.
You're lucky.
I've had it land actually once on my toe.
Okay.
But that was all right.
Okay, cool. So one of the things that's changing relatively soon for you is you're not going to be a junior anymore.
Well, actually, that's already happened.
Well, okay, so...
Yeah, but I've not competed yet, technically.
Yeah, so next time you compete, you're not going to be a junior
anymore.
Yeah. What are your thoughts and feelings on that?
The people... Like, I don't see it as too much different. Like, everyone's going to like go into the open at one point if they keep doing it. Just the people that I'm like competing against, the people already in my weight class were strong as fuck, and now the people in my weight class in this age group are even stronger. It's like it's ridiculous. So like I think the main thing is like I'm thinking, oh, I won't be doing as good, but then at the same time it's like I'm remotivation of like, well, I need to just do better, put more energy into making sure everything in my life, like diet and stuff, sleep's all good, so that I can get to that point where they are, basically.
And I think one of the big things with a transition like that is you've obviously got to set your expectations and deal with them. So I don't know if you're a person that works on short-term or long-term expectations, but you've represented Great Britain already. Is your goal to represent Great Britain again in, well, kind of moving forward, or is that like long-term, or are you basically just looking to be stronger than everyone else in the world?
I think that's massively long-term, like to compete at that level again, purely because like there's other people in the weight class that are so like good at what they do, basically. But like I feel like I'm pretty bad for like setting goals, and I'm quite short-sighted in the sense of like I won't look too far into the future at what I want to do. I'll rather just be like, oh, I'm going to do this on my session next Tuesday, rather than like, right, this is what I'm going to be doing a few months down the line, or next month. How am I going to set myself up for that? And it's I have to think to myself, like, what would I want myself in the future to have present Max do in order to get to like where I want to be? Because otherwise I just look to the next day or the day after that, and there's no like long-term sort of thing.
I think that actually makes a lot of sense. This is something that Charlie mentioned in the last episode. So it's kind of like backwards planning. So in terms of you have this thing, and you basically identify what it is that makes that doable, and then you basically just build that into now, and you look forward. And ultimately what you're trying to do then is the goal is then taken care of. You don't need to focus on the goal so much. You just need to focus on the many things that you can hit along the way.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's one of the things that's quite important, especially with something like powerlifting, where, again, if I look at your results or what you've achieved through your competitions, there's a very, very gradual process of strength increasing. And maybe that's just clever on the way that you've picked the weight on a certain day and you've had a good day, but at the same time, that strength doesn't come from nowhere.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm interested in is your highest recorded deadlift, I think, is 329 kilos.
In competition,
in competition. And this is going to be a talking point, is moving on. You're obviously going away from being junior, going towards open, and then you have actually pulled more than that.
Yeah.
So what's the highest weight you've pulled now?
So 340 kilos last year or something.
Which is actually a vast difference, right? The 11 kilos, that weight already is huge.
Yeah.
Have you set your sights on something that you want to pull in your first open competition?
I haven't actually, you know. I think I said to myself, because that 340 was just, I went to the gym and was doing deadlifts. There's no fatigue from like squat or bench. So I think I wanted to do 340 in competition, and like that's what I wanted. So other people have said, oh, no, probably get a bit more. But then to myself, I'm like, well, I don't want to say like, I want to do 360 or 350 or something crazy and then not do it, because I'll be disappointed. If I get 340, I'll be like, cool, now what's next? And then I can go up from there. If I do more than it, wicked, like I've done more than what I expected, basically.
On that subject, this is a bit of a question around kind of social media a little bit.
Yeah.
So you obviously have been making these videos of you going up in that weight, and it's really cool to see. Do you find that deadlift videos do better than anything else?
Yeah, and then sometimes, like weirdly, like my squat ones do quite well as of recent when I've posted them. And I don't know why, because my squat's not crazy or anything. I get it might look nice, but then like probably the ones that do better are deadlifts, yeah.
Okay, and do you fall into a trap? Bearing in mind you're obviously following a program, you've got a coach, you kind of know that you're going for these smaller goals of incrementally increasing your strength. Do you ever fall in the trap of comparing what you're seeing on social media to what you're doing?
Not as much as I used to. I think now, like, because of my program, and I'm so like, I know, like, I'm set out a month's time, I do know what I'm going to be lifting, basically. So I can have thoughts in my head of what I'm going to do at these different points in time. I might see other people like lifting more, lifting less. I don't think it's not really going to change like what I'm doing personally. I think when I compete, I know what most of the people I'm competing against might be able to do, but I'm never like in my training being like, oh, I need to do this. It's like I won't adjust stuff. I'll just do me, basically.
I think this is one of the biggest things that comes with maturity of most sport, really, is if you speak to someone like yourself, a bit like you just said there, if I said, okay, in 1 month's time, what do you reckon you can lift? If I go up to someone that's slightly less experienced, they'll be like, oh, I don't know. I saw this person on this, or I know this person at my gym who's done this, so I'm going to go for that in a month's time.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas you're like, okay, I will probably be there. Or in a month's time, if I said, are you surprised you lifted that today? You'd be like, no.
Yeah, because I knew I know it's
going to happen.
Yeah.
And the thing is with that is you build up this level of confidence because, again, you're just repetitively hitting the target that you've set.
Yeah.
Rather than going in with your mates, doing 2 sessions with two warm-up sets with the bar and then throwing this weight on and being like, oh, why didn't it move?
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that comes with maturity, and people confuse mental maturity in sport for something else that's causing this physical performance increase, because training like that sounds so logical when it's explained.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, you're not really giving yourself a choice but to improve.
Yeah.
But then when you take a backward approach, or you speak to most people about sport, it always seems like there's a bit of luck in terms of getting there. And this is what, I guess, with this podcast, it's kind of lifting up the barrier behind what actually goes on, kind of showing the behind the scenes and the dedication it takes to get that way. Now, with that, people obviously want to find out more things about what you do and that kind of thing. So we have the listener question section of the podcast, where we've had a few people come through your page, people come through mine with some really good questions. Now, the first question is from Charles, who's actually been on the podcast himself before.
Sweet.
He wants to know, bench, squat, or deadlift for the rest of your life. Which one would you pick and not do the others, and why?
Probably just be deadlift, because I enjoy them because they're my better lift, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's just
with a close runner-up as squat, because I actually quite like squats as well.
Okay, and then as you said earlier, bench is just...
Yeah, I could substitute bench for something else. I'm not too bothered.
Do you think you'd go mental if all you could do was deadlift, though?
Oh, well, as in any exercise?
Like, you can't do anything else.
Yeah.
Now, if we're talking about accessories, though, would you take a different accessory lift over deadlift? If you could pick one gym exercise for the rest of your life, then would it be deadlift?
I don't know what other exercise I'd enjoy. I don't know what exercise is that good. I don't think there's not one particular exercise that I just love.
I think deadlift is quite visibly the most satisfying.
All I'm thinking about is what can I get the most gains from in my entire body? And it's probably a deadlift, so I'm just choosing that. Okay. I'm not too bothered about the actual deadlift itself, though.
Cool. The next question then is from Jamie.
Yeah.
Jamie asked about your mentality in heavy sessions.
Yeah.
I've got a bit of a follow-on question for this.
Cool.
What is your mentality when you're going into a heavy session?
I'm excited because I just want to show what I've been working on. And then usually when I'm doing a heavier session, there's a few guys from the gym down, and it's just a good environment to be in. I'm just having a good time, and that's it. I'll just go enjoy it, basically.
Awesome. Now, Jamie, I don't want to assume where you're coming from with this, but your question spurred something, which is Eddie Hall, when he broke the world record for deadlift, he went to a sports therapist who basically taught him how to take himself to an incredibly dark place.
Yeah.
He pulled it off the floor. Basically imagined a horrible scenario, which you can find online if you haven't seen it. It's not very nice, but he had to go there to be able to summon the sort of anger and strength that it took him to move the weight.
Yeah.
Do you do anything like that, or do you have a pre-routine?
Oh, yeah, I've definitely got a pre-routine. I'll have certain songs, maybe a genre song that I'll put on, to get myself in the zone. And then, it's a weird one, but it's, on TikTok, I'll have a few saved videos on TikTok, and it'll be an edit of something with, maybe something motivational over it. It's a bit cringe, but, it sort of makes you think, it works. How much effort you've put in, how far you've come, and just sort of it gets almost a bit of an arousal of adrenaline as on top of the music as well. That's what I'll do before I lift. I'm not taking myself to some crazy dark place or anything, but that's just me. So
no, I think people that might say those things are cringe, they've made a difference to my life, and I know a lot of people that rely on them. So I think that's a good thing to use. It's probably a bit more healthy than what Eddie was thinking about as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't go into the gym and just be cool, I'm going to do this really heavy weight. Anyone slap a song on, I don't really care what's on. I'll have my headphones in. I won't be talking to anyone. I'll be really in the zone. But then, yeah.
Yeah, no, fair enough. So the last question comes from Taryn.
Yeah.
He's another one of your followers who asked, what do you need to do to be able to compete in Worlds?
Like, basically, from someone who never thought that would happen, is just be consistent. I think, like, when I look back how many years I've been training now, and for a lot of those years, bar like maybe a holiday or illness, not missed a single session, and collectively those sessions combined, I've just created what I've got now. I've not like done some crazy like one exercise or taken a supplement or eaten a certain food to get here. I've just been consistent with training and diet, and that's about it really.
So if we were to take a look at the fact that you have been really consistent, you kind of alluded to the fact that you might have started things differently.
Yeah.
Now, the next section of the podcast is a 3 pieces of advice section, where effectively you get to imagine that I leave the room and you are still sat in that chair, but in this chair is a different version of you.
Cool.
So what I typically do with guests that are on the younger side of life, right? And I feel like a lot of the guests I've had have still been in their 20s, which means that I'm basically flipping it around the number 25. But being 23, realistically, I would certainly hope you're not halfway through your life or even close to it.
We'd hope so.
But for that reason, what I would want to do is, yes, I'd like to take 2 pieces of advice for a younger version of yourself.
Yeah.
And 1 piece of advice for an older version of yourself. Now, what would they be?
So for my younger self, I would say like to be consistent, because I think at certain points maybe I wasn't. And then the other one would be like, I don't know if a mentor's the right word, but like find someone who is knowledgeable and can like give me information and guidance, because that would have helped me so much. Like Shah, my coach, if I'd have had her like in a year or so earlier, I'll be that much further ahead in what I'm doing. So it's frustrated, but like, yeah, I'll be like, find a mentor maybe, and then be consistent. And then for my future self, like me to my future self, I would say to just do things you have enjoyment doing, basically. Like, I don't want to get to a certain point where like I'm powerlifting for the sake of, I once did it, I know it was good and I liked it, so I have to keep doing it. Like, if it comes to a point in time where I don't like powerlifting, I'll just find something else I enjoy. As long as I'm happy, that's fine. I'm all right.
I like that. That's nice to look forward to as well.
Yeah.
Always knowing that you're going to be doing something you enjoy.
Yeah.
To have. Amazing. Now, guys, this has happened before. The final sort of section of the podcast is where the previous guest asks the question forward for the next guest, not knowing who they're going to be. The problem is that sometimes I get too excited by the response and I get lost in the train of thought. So
no excitement today then.
Well, actually, I've written it down that I have to ask. So generally speaking, the previous guest asked this question. Last week, I was joined by Charlie Hubbard, who's an absolute madman, even though he claims to be a very normal bloke. In the space of like 5 weeks, he went and did a 200-kilometer ultramarathon through the Arctic Circle, and then followed that off with a 252-kilometer ultramarathon in the Sahara Desert. Very different extremes. Crazy story. If you like the idea of the hardest geezer, I highly suggest you go back and listen. Shameless plug for my own podcast. But I asked Charlie a question and I forgot to follow up by asking him what his question for Max would be. So I've kind of put my brain in the thought process of Charlie based on what I've just told you guys. A bit of a kind of an extreme adventurer. Now, in terms of a philosophical question, what is your Everest and why? So when I ask that question, obviously some people will be like, oh, that's my Everest. Like, that's the ultimate thing I could ever achieve in life.
Okay, yeah.
What would yours be and why?
I think it would be in terms of like maybe career-wise, in terms of like being able to do something I enjoy as like my career. I think that's like the best thing that I could ask for.
And do you have an idea of what that is, or is that coaching to you?
I think that would be coaching, helping people like who were in my situation. I was like them, and just basically I feel like I do quite a lot of stuff in my life outside of training as well. That's like kind of entertaining, interesting. Like, got a good group of mates as well that we do loads of stuff with. So showcasing that and just like what I get up to, like basically just stuff like that.
So achieving that as being your lifestyle, but also the provider, and that is like the ultimate goal.
And just enjoying like what I do, basically.
Nice. Okay. Now, again, because I don't want to be the bad host that forgets again, I'm going to ask you for your question for the next guest. Now, what I will preface that with is we've had some incredible questions.
Yeah.
We've had some incredibly deep questions that are more on the stroke of mental health. We've had some questions about whether people prefer donuts or I can't even remember what the other one was, cheesecake.
Yeah.
So donuts or cheesecake. What is the question you would like to ask for the next guest?
I think it will be, what's one thing you can change to what you're doing right now to get to your goal quicker?
Okay, so one specific thing.
Yeah, what do you think that, like, if you're sitting there right now, is there one thing that you think, I'm not doing that, or I could try harder with this, that's going to help you out, basically?
Okay, I like that question. Now, for anyone that's listening to this, essentially, tune into the next episode because you'll find the answer to Max's question. Now, that kind of rounds off the podcast. So I want to say a massive thank you for coming on,
having me,
teaching me more about powerlifting than I ever knew, and hopefully the listeners as well. Also gives a chance for the guys that follow you, the guys and girls that follow you, to learn a bit more about your story.
Yeah.
But it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join. Now, one thing that I always want to do is make sure that it's an opportunity, an open space for you to share something or plug something for yourself. Obviously, you've got your coaching platform, or if you just want to plug your socials, then please, by all means, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's just Max Mansell-Rowe on like Instagram, whatever, like that, basically.
Okay,
yeah.
Amazing. So yeah, if you want any more wise words in the world of powerlifting or life so far, then feel free to reach out to Max. The podcast is at mindsets_podcast. Obviously, with all the content that we put out with this podcast with Max, we'll have Max's information in there as well.
Sweet.
So if you're struggling to find Max, you can find the podcast page on all of those platforms. You even get bonus points if you share, because then you're just sharing the love, really. We can reach more people that can do with a bit of advice. So with that being said, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. I look forward to seeing you all in the next episode.